Okay folks, this video basically is about polishing large pieces of aluminum, but just to make sure, I want to apologize first for the fact that my shop looks like the place exploded. And the other thing, I've already mentioned in another lesson that I am profanity laced, a propensity to vulgar language. So if you got tender ears, you better bugger off to another YouTube site. But now I'm going to explain how we're going to polish this aluminum. As you can see, I got a front bumper. This is the 1947 Federal that we're building on a 1-ton truck chassis. We have a 2,700-pound, 320 horsepower supercharged Cummins diesel in it, and it's going to be great fun when we're finished. There's other videos about the build as it goes along on my YouTube site. But I went to Boeing Surplus about 25 years ago, and I saw a long piece of aluminum channel, and it looked like the perfect stuff to make a bumper out of. So I bought it, threw it in my truck, and it sat outside in my metal pile for 20 some odd years, and it oxidized pretty badly. Now aluminum oxidizes naturally and gets a coat of aluminum oxide on it, which pretty much stops it from deteriorating. But it's a bitch to get off and polish the aluminum, and that's what I want to do. Then I'm also going to polish these 2 aluminum fenders that I had rolled. Now, I had a metal polisher do this work on the engine, and it cost me like $400 or $500. This was about 30 years ago. I've been working on this fucking project a long time, as you can guess. Anyway, I decided that I was going to learn how to polish aluminum. So I went to YouTube University, and I kind of found out a lot about it, but these guys were doing it by hand. They were doing little shit. Well, I got big shit. I got some acreage to cover here. Look at the size of this fucking bumper. You know, it's 6 feet long, 6 inches high, 2 inches deep, and I got to polish it to a mirror finish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off a minute. I'm going to set the camera up, and then we'll start showing you the tools we're going to use. Okay, the first tool we're going to use is this here 9-inch, 8-inch sanding disc on a Sioux polisher. It's got an 80 grit adhesive pad on it, and it makes short work of handling divots, which this son of a bitch has a lot of, and sharp edges. I kind of soften the sharp edges with it. It's pretty quick. So I'll work it for a minute, and then we'll shut the camera down again while we change tools. Okay, this is an air-powered orbital sander with an adhesive pad on it, and I start out with 100 grit to take massive amounts of this oxidization off the surface. I will follow it up with 220 grit and cover the whole thing. I'll go to 350 grit, and then I'll go to 500 grit, and then I will go to 1000 grit. I ordered some 2000, it's not here yet. But after that, we're going to use rubbing compound, and we're going to use aluminum polish. It's very labor intensive. It takes a lot of hours to do a good job on something this big. So you can skip on and go and look at somebody else's, you know, watch them do it, or you can watch me, because I'll show you each stage along the way. Shouldn't take too long. But this little bugger does pretty good until it runs out of air. But I got the compressor shut off right now because it makes so much fucking noise, it'll blot out everything. So I'm going to run it until I run low on air. I'm going to tie you off, and I'm going to start the compressor, and when I'm done with this, we'll start with the 220 grit. Now, there's some pretty deep scratches here that this 80 is going to take a long time to get through. I may just go grab that polisher with the 80 wheel and, you know, touch this a little bit, because you got various little heavy corrosion spots and handling divots and so forth along the way, rust stains from hanging or laying there with a bunch of steel. So anyway, I'll work you up to the next one after I get this particular pass done. Okay, I forgot a major announcement. I was so eager to get started on this fucking video that I forgot. Don't polish or sand aluminum without a good respirator. You get that shit in your lungs, you're gonna get pretty fucking sick. And it's my own fault for not mentioning it earlier, because that's the first thing I should have done before I pulled the trigger on the first fucking tool. So, you could just say, okay, fool, get started. So I'm gonna put this contraption on. Once I'm able to breathe through it, I'll go back to work. Okay, I'm gonna show you how this kind of looks as we go along now. Right in here, you see those scratches, that rust stain? You gotta get all that shit out of there on your first pass with some heavy duty paper. And it goes all along here. As you can see, there's scratches, there's nicks, there's stains, there's all sorts of stuff in here. And down here where we've already worked it, there's those scratches that I mentioned earlier. See if I'm making a shadow on them. Anyway, I may have to take those out with something a little heavier. But see, basically we've got a nice swirl pattern from the 100 grit sanding paper. And I've gotten all the stains, all the little scratches, all that stuff is out of there. And I've spent about 15 minutes getting this far. So just letting you know how the progress goes. And the other thing is, all my shit in here is 3-phase, so I got a phase converter up there that makes a lot of racket. And the air compressor makes a lot of racket. And the place is pandemonium in here for hour after hour with all that shit running. So at any rate, a good time was had by all, and we'll check you in a little bit later.
Just thought I'd let you know what this fucking place sounds like when I'm running this shit. Isn't this fun? I can't wear my fucking seeds either. I can't put these fuckers on. Anyway, I'll see you in a minute.
Okay, I made that whole pass, 74 inches by 2, with one adhesive 100 sanding disc. Now I'm going to tell you something important. Look at that. It's just almost as clean as new, and it was still cutting just as good when I finished as when I started. So the deal is, make darn sure that you clean the surface with something that does not leave a petroleum film. Do not clean the surface with solvent or gasoline or anything like that. You need something like enamel reducer or acetone. Acetone, you can buy it at Home Depot for a few bucks a gallon. You got to work it fast because it evaporates out of your hand and out of the rag pretty quick. So you got to keep the rag pretty wet. Wash the thing. That takes all the crap out of there, and your sanding disc will not load up. So I'm going to start with the 100 grit, or the 220 grit now. It's going to be the same old shit, so I'm not going to waste my time showing you. I'll put the respirator on, I'll spend another 20 minutes making another pass, and then I will go to 320 grit, 500 grit, and 1000 grit. Okay, I'm up through 500 grit on this bumper. I've been here about 2.5 hours, and this is as far as I've gotten. Now remember, I told you when I used that 100 and that 220 grit that I could get through the thing with one sanding pad. Well, when you get into the finer sanding pads, that aluminum powder will foul them, and they get to the point where they will not cut anymore. And here's 1,000 grit. Look at the way that sucker fouled up. And that fouls up maybe by the time I've gone 1 foot, I have to throw it away and start again. So, anyway, the other thing I want to tell you, on these fucking orbital sanders, I got this one at Napa. I have no idea who made it. But two things. You need a regulator in the line because they only run about 40 to 60 psi. And if you run full pressure through them, you're going to end up wrecking them. The other thing, the little guys need a little snort of air tool oil. And they need that every day because they work hard down inside there with all those little parts going around fast and fast and fast. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start working with the 1,000 grit and throwing away a disc about every 5 minutes or less. And I'm going to have to order some more because I only got 20 just to try them out. So I'll get a roll of them, you know, like these things. And then I can really go to town. So I'll keep you informed because we're going to get to the point where we get to the messy stuff. And that's the rubbing compound with the water mixed in with it and the big sheep's wool wheel. So I'll check with you a little later. Okay, we're resuming this video. It's been about 3 days since I showed you the first couple of shots. I'm on the second bumper right now, and I still have some aluminum tubing and a piece of stainless stack that I have to polish. But right now, what we're doing, we're still working on this aluminum. And the key is, you just make finer and finer and finer scratches until you can polish it. And that, you know, you can polish it from 500 grit, but you've got to use some heavy-duty rubbing compound. But once you get to 1,000 or over, it's much easier to polish. Right now, I am using 350 grade. I have used 100, 220, I am now on 350. And I'll show you a couple things. First of all, when you install any of these adhesive discs, try to make sure that it's centered as close as can be. Now this is about an 1/8 of an inch off. It looks more like a quarter, but it's not. It's about an 1/8. It'll stay on there, but if you get it a little too far off center, it'll start walking right off the pad, and you've ruined the pad, and you've got to start with another one. Now, this thing looks like it's fouled. Looks pretty ugly, but it's still cutting. So I'm not going to throw that thing away. The way you can tell it's still cutting, there's a couple of ways. One of which is, you see this powder here? This sander kicks this powder out in front of it, and that's telling you that it's cutting. The other way is you can see we have finer scratches here, heavier scratches here. Kind of hard to tell on a GoPro, but that's the deal. And we're working from 220 up to 350, then we will go to 500. Now, this stuff comes in these little rolls. I'm sure you may be familiar with it, but if you're not, you basically, they've got some adhesive on the back of them, and you just peel off one and stick it on your pad and sort of work it in a little bit, make sure it's sticking, and then you go to work. The other way you can tell if it's still cutting, and this could fool you because if you hit a piece of petroleum residue or something, it can fool you. But if it'll torque in your hand a little bit, you can actually feel it try to pull when it's actually cutting, and when it's not cutting, it won't pull. Unless you got petroleum on it, and then it'll try to be sticky, and it'll feel like it's doing something, but it won't be kicking out any powder to tell you that you're actually cutting anything. So it's very, very important to have this stuff spit shined with something that doesn't leave a residue like acetone. So we're going to go back to work. You'll see a couple of these discs. I brought them out to show. This is a 500. It's fouled. This is a 1000. It's fouled. But look at this one. This is a 350. It appears to be fouled, but it's still cutting because there's plenty of sharp stones in there, and just because it picked up some aluminum dust, it still cuts. When it stops cutting, I will throw it away. But I just wanted to bring you up to date here. We are on the second bumper. We got a couple other things to go, and then we'll go out and really make a freaking mess when we polish it. We'll check with you later. Bye. Okay, we're going to do the outside messy shit right now. And here is your seat for the show. This is the only thing I could find to get this camera up high enough. And we're going to try to put it on this board. And get you folks where you can see what the fuck is going on. Well, we've got the camera turned the wrong fucking way, don't we? How about that shit? Okay. Now, as you can see, I'm all decked out in my fucking rompers because this is the messiest part of the whole fucking job. The redeeming social value of the whole fucking deal is I don't have to wear a respirator for this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this polisher. This is the same polisher that we used with the sandpaper, with the 80 grit sandpaper to knock the rough corners off. This is a lamb's wool wheel. We put rubbing compound on it and on the metal, and because we have to mix water with the rubbing compound, this thing throws shit everywhere. So I had to put you guys a little farther away. I'm going to get started on this, and I'll do some clips on the when I edit this, and I'll get, you know, a lot of this shit out, just put the important stuff in. Try using this fine cut. I used a rougher material the last time. It worked pretty good, but I want it to polish nicely the first go round, so we're going to just do a little practice patch. Are you still awake? Let's see. Yep, they're still awake. Okay. Well, here's what we got. Looks pretty nice, but I can still see some sanding scratches in it. So I am going to use the heavier cut stuff on all this first, and then I'll go back and use the softer grade stuff. Okay, I'm going to turn you guys off for a while. I'm going to use the heavier cut stuff, and then I'm going to use the lighter cut stuff, and we'll see where we're at. But you got the general idea. You just go after it with a lamb's wool wheel, a little bit of water and some rubbing compound, and rub it until it comes out nice. we'll see you a little later. Okay, I think I've got the machine far enough away now that you can watch without getting spattered with all this shit. Anyway, as the rubbing compound bites, this polisher gets hard to hold on to because it torques really hard. Because it's doing a lot of work going through that those sanding scratches. So I'm gonna do a little bit of it up at this end so you can see how it works, and then we'll go to the next step. See, it turns black. That's the residues coming off the surface of the aluminum. And as you continue to run the polisher, eventually the stuff dries out enough that the polisher will actually throw it off the metal and it'll clean up. Okay, I'm sure you got the idea. I'm going to tip these things up on their edge and C-clamp them and work the top and bottom. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to use the finer stuff on this front surface. Well, look what just fucking happened here. That son of a bitch split wide open because it's only about 30 years old. So anyway, what we're going to do next is when I finish polishing this particular one, I'm going to wash it with soap and water. I'm going to dry it with a terry cloth rag, and then I'm going to polish it with Mother's aluminum and chromium polish. Pretty fancy shit, huh? Anyway, that's what we're going to do, but just want to show you, this is the kind of fucking shit you run into when you keep stuff until the Goodwill wouldn't want it. I probably bought this 30-some years ago, and the plastic container's a little tired, but the rubbing compound still works. Just thought I'd let you know. Well, I got part of it done. I'm just checking here with Big Ben. It's about 15 minutes to drinking time. Now, if you want a really good drink, you take a 16-ounce glass, you put 4 ice cubes in it, you pour in 4 shots of gin and 6 ounces of Q tonic, and you'll have a pretty good fucking drink. That's what I'm going to do as soon as I put all this shit away. But let's take a look at the results. Okay. Now, I don't know if you can see yourself in it, but there you are. And this is the unpolished part. And here's the polished part. See the difference? See how fuzzy that is? Now, there's still sanding scratches in it because the old bastard that sanded it, you know, didn't have some 2000 grit paper, which I asked my dear wife to buy, and she conveniently didn't. She will not allow me to have my own Amazon account. She says both of us paying for Jeff Bezos Prime is stupid. So anyway, I got the one that got cut off. So if I want something now, I got to send her a link, an Amazon link, and beg her to buy the fucking whatever it is. But anyway, you guys got probably, you know, something along the same line maybe, if you're married. But I've been with her for 51 years, and I'm not going to change horses in midstream. Anyway, fellas, we'll finish it up tomorrow. Thanks. Bye. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody in the peanut gallery and anybody who managed to sit through this long flick, thank you. I'm just wrapping it up now because I got 2 more pieces that I polished after the bumpers, and I want to show them to you. One of them's aluminum, one of them's stainless. So on this Federal, as you can see, I got the fenders polished. You got the front bumper, back bumpers over here in the back, I think. Pretty sure that's where I keep it. There's thumbprints and stuff all over from mounting them and then starting to install the tail lights and turn signal, winky lights and all that shit. But as you can see, it came out pretty nice. So the compressor for the air system has to be able to get clean air put in it. And I had it hooked up to the intake pipe over there. And I just had a big ugly piece of 1-inch hose that came from here, wrapped around here, came down here to the compressor. Well, it looked like shit, and it just didn't belong on this build. So I bought some 1-inch aluminum tubing, and I polished it. As you can see, it shines pretty nice. And I got a 45 and a 90 1-inch hose that I plumbed that into the air system without bleeding off from the bottom of the intake manifold like you see on a lot of them. I didn't want to be stealing supercharger air, even if just a little bit. Now, when I got ambitious and decided I wanted to put a 4-inch stack on this truck that I'm building, I'm going to have to walk around here and show you. Again, the shop looks like it exploded. That's all my fault. But you know, when you drop something on the floor, it's not going anywhere after that. You can always find stuff where you dropped it last. So, if you can see over there, I had to buy a 10-inch stick of 4-inch stainless tubing for the stack. Well, 10 feet, ouch. I almost spilled myself there. I got hoses and shit. But see, that shit turned out pretty darn nice. And I polished it precisely the way I did with the bumper, although I didn't need to do any sanding first. All it had was mill scale or mung or some film on it, Cosmoline, I don't know what the fuck it was, but it came off pretty easy with some acetone. And then I just polished it with fine rubbing compound after I washed and completely cleaned that lamb's wool wheel. So anyway, this little project is coming right along, and I'm putting this video up for aluminum polishing only. That's the only part of this build that we covered on this. But since I had to learn how to do it to save a few $100, I just wanted to share with you that it can be done. So, thank you again for checking into my channel. I hope you learned something valuable from this, and I would love to see all the polished stuff that you make. Take care. Bye.